Hello and welcome. You're watching this special edition on Business Today Television. I'm Sakshi Batra. In case you've been wondering over the weekend, trying to find out what the new labor codes have for you in case you're an employee or an employer, well, this is the show where we will be breaking down everything for you to understand. India has rolled out a sweeping revamp of its labor framework, bringing 29 separate laws under 4 streamlined labor codes. The reforms cover various factors, wages, industrial relations, social security, workplace safety. They all aim to provide protection to workers and to create a more stable environment for both employees as well as employers as well. These new labor codes replace a patchwork of older laws with one clearer set of rules. These changes now affect everyday basics like wages, leaves, working hours, workplace security and much more. Whether someone is working full-time or on a contract or in sector-specific roles like media, plantations or factories, the new framework affects nearly everyone. To decode what the new labor codes have for us, we have a special guest joining in, Mr. Balasubramanian Narayanan. He's the SVP and Business Head of Team Lead Services and he's with us on the program. Warm welcome to you, Mr. Narayanan. Good to have you with us. Let's start off with the outset, like at this very start. Why was there a need for simplifying these 29 labor codes or rules into 4 labor codes? Has it done what it has aimed to do? Does it make a lot of difference for everybody who comes under the labor laws right now?
Yeah. Firstly, wish you a very good afternoon and thank you so much for having me, Sakshi. Yeah.
Good afternoon.
I think to answer your question, before we get into what these labor codes mean, it's really important to understand why we need these labor codes in the first place. So for a country of our size and scale and our GDP in terms of purchasing power parity is ranked 3 in the world, just behind US and China. Even in terms of nominal GDP, we are still at rank 5. But in terms of our GDP per capita, we are somewhere behind, beyond rank 135 or 140, right? So the productivity is quite low. But an important aspect also is that the degree of informality in our workforce is extremely high. So out of the 55 odd crore people who participate in the workforce in India, 85%, that's nearly 47 crore people of this 55 are part of the informal workforce, which means they do not get any kind of social security. Meaning, broadly, if you look at the 3 aspects of social security, that is health, life cover and retirement benefits, they don't get any of this. There is only 8 crore people outside of this who get all these social security benefits, and that includes your full-time employees and also your contract staff, because even before the introduction of labor codes, there has been a reasonable amount of parity achieved between the benefits that permanent employees and contract staff get. And since we are one of the largest contract staffing companies in the world, I can definitely vouch for that. There is parity in that. But what is the incentive really for companies to shift the informal workers, the vast majority of the workforce in India, to the formal workers? I mean, there isn't much. The compliance burden in India is significantly high. There are 29 labor laws which have now been unified into 4 labor codes, as you said. That doesn't sound something astronomically significant, but if you get into one further level of detail, it does start unraveling. So just to put this in context, we have about 1,436 provisions, 31 returns, 181 forms to be filled, and there are 84 registers, and there are multiple other sort of sub registrations and all that. Now, all of this, imagine if they could get unified and digitalized. Let's take the smallest number out of these 4 numbers that I threw at you, 31 returns. If there can only be 1 return that gets filed digitally, imagine how much relief in terms of compliance burden that companies can get. And the bulk of this burden is borne by MSMEs, not so much by the big guys. They have the muscle and they also have the base with which they can absorb this compliance burden. But it's the little guys really who kind of get squeezed under the weight of this compliance burden. So if that becomes, if that gets alleviated to a significant degree like this, then there is no reason as to why they wouldn't move people to the formal bucket. Because if they move people to the formal bucket, then they have to comply with all these things. So there is an incentive to fly under the radar. If that goes away, then why wouldn't they do it, right? The other aspect, Sakshi, which we need to look at from the employee's perspective is that they look at these deductions, statutory deductions such as PF, ESI and other things as a burden on themselves. Why? Because they lack awareness about what they can actually get through this. For as little as 4% of their salary, they get covered under ESI, and ESI gives you unlimited cashless health cover for self and up to 7 dependent members of your family. How many people even know this? I didn't know this until I joined TeamLease myself. Yeah. So yes, what isn't clear is for gig workers, since you spoke about that, the 1 crore plus gig workers we have in India, which is part of the 55 crore workforce that we have. They will also be brought under the purview of Social Security, and the contribution is capped to 5% of the amount that is due to them, right? Which is perfect. Now, with this 5% exactly, what is the ambit of benefits they'll be getting is something we don't have 100% clarity on, which the government has said when they announced it that within a week they'll be in a position to share much more in terms of the specifics around these. Yeah. So we are awaiting further details on that, but we are hopeful and we are confident that it will be along the lines of the benefits that permanent and contract staff in India already are enjoying, right? So this is the, like I said, long and short of it. Employees get social security benefits. Employers, get a significant degree of their compliance burden alleviated, right? So it's a clear win-win situation. Long story short, in terms of the cost burden, yes, there is a cost burden also for employers because you have to pay gratuity after 1 year now, not 4 years and 8 months as it was earlier. And you have to consider your PF wages as 50% of the CTC and not 50% of gross salary, which means the contribution goes up, which means your net take home can potentially go down, right? It can. Having said that, if you look at how employers should play this, they should ideally make sure that net take home is protected for the employees, and if there is any delta in terms of contribution, if they could absorb it, nothing like it, because it's all the more to the benefit of the employee, and hence if because of this, if attrition goes down, it comes back as a business benefit to the employer. So we need to look at this from a 360-degree perspective. Sakshi, I hope that answered your question.
Absolutely. So let's just dig this point a little deeper, since you did say that gratuity will now have to be paid after 1 year, and PF contribution will will be on an uptick side, because we will see that change, and eventually our take home pay can reduce. Do we have any idea of any percentage of what could, or a range of how the take home pay can get reduced because of these changes?
See, if you are to maintain the CTC as it is, the cost to the company as it is, and especially if there are people who are at the lower end of the spectrum in terms of salary, and the reason why I'm saying this is because even if you are at a higher end of the spectrum earning several lakhs per month, you can still make a minimum contribution of 1800 rupees to PF, right? For those people, there won't be any change at all, by the way.
Okay.
Right? I'm really talking about people at the lower end of the spectrum for whom the PF contribution is below 1800 rupees, which means your salary itself is probably below 15,000 rupees or something in that range, maybe, right? I'm only talking about those people. So for those people, if the CTC is kept the same, and if their PF wages go up, it will go up marginally, basically, right? Because between gross and CTC, you only have the employer contribution. So it will go up a little bit. And if PF is deducted on that portion also, then there is a chance that your PF contribution might go up, but then which might eat into your net take home. But then our recommendation would be, to make sure that the net take home is maintained the same, and the employees just get more benefit out of this, because employers also anyway get incremental benefits in terms of lesser compliance burden and stuff. So maybe they could look at passing on a portion of it to employees in this form.
Absolutely, because the government on the one hand has actually been making a lot of efforts to increase the take-home pay for consumers, for people at large, so that the consumption could also surge. We've seen that all this year through all those tax benefits that the government has extended, and now with these labor reforms, in case we see slight bit of an impact that could offset the benefit of the tax reforms, that's something that all employers should definitely keep an eye out on as well. Apart from this, the other talking point that you mentioned on gratuity, help us understand what happens there. What was the situation up until now, and what changes there, and for all the employers and employees to know.
Yeah. So earlier, gratuity is something that a person will be eligible for once they complete 4 years and 240 days continuously under a particular employer. But now it has come down to just 1 year. So the cost for the employer will go up, right? So look at it this way, which means the net take home for the employee can potentially go up, because what is the percentage of people who complete 5 years in an establishment these
Yeah.
days, right? People keep changing a lot. It isn't how things were, let's say, a couple of decades back, when people
Yes.
join a company and retire there, right?
Yes.
So this gives a lot of relief for employees as well, that even if I work in a place for just 12 months or 18 months, and for various reasons I choose to move out, they will still get their gratuity for that particular period prorated and paid out to them, right? For every
Yeah.
completed year of service, Sakshi, you get about 15 days of salary. That's the sort of rough calculation. So it is like
Right.
getting 12 and a half months of salary, right? Think about it.
Yes.
So that is a significant upside, and whatever else we are looking at would be substantially lesser than this, in terms of, like I said, is there an impact in net take home because of PF? But the CTC anyway will be the same, right? And plus
Fair
you
point.
get a gratuity benefit, which is a real net take home benefit over and above that.
Fair point. Help us understand, for a lot of viewers, the question will arise is, from when will this be implemented? Will it be implemented on your current and your previous, employment, or will it be now, retrospective or prospective in nature? How would you be able to explain that?
Unfortunately, we don't have those specifics as yet. What we do know is that it's been implemented effective immediately. That is 21st of
Okay.
November itself, which is Friday when the announcement came out.
Yeah.
But as you said, is there a prospective date? Is there a retrospective calculation, etc.? We don't know. I think the government has said that they'll come out in a week's time with the specifics, so we'll have to wait.
Absolutely. One of the other key benefits, like we were talking about, is gig and platform workers. Well, for the first time, they're getting defined legally, and that's the big change that is truly happening under these new labor codes. Of course, we are talking about accident compensation now, aggregator welfare fund contribution, Aadhaar-linked portable benefits as well. Could you detail for us as to what are the key benefits that these gig and platform workers now, get, and whether this will now increase the number of employees or prospective people who would be now willing to take up these jobs, with a more comfort and sense of security as well?
Yeah, no, absolutely. See, like I called out earlier as well, we have about 1 crore plus organized gig and
Yes.
platform workers in India. I'm not talking about the unorganized gig workers, because if you work even as a Manrega worker or as a farm hand, on someone else's plot, you're still a gig worker, right? Because you work there, you get paid at the end of the day, you are like a casual laborer, but then you aren't really an organized or a semi-organized gig worker in that sense. So if you look at the semi-formal gig work in India, which primarily works in e-commerce, quick commerce, logistics, aggregator platforms, etc., that's over 1 crore people. Now, these people are neither formal nor informal. They are a high risk category because they are exposed to the elements. They are out on the road in most cases, and there is absolutely no social security benefit for them whatsoever. It's not like the employers, I wouldn't say employers, let's say the platforms themselves who employ them don't do anything for them. They do, but that's not really uniform. It's not really standard. They take in some cases some insurance policies maybe for them, etc. But the problem really is that for gig workers, many insurance companies may not be forthcoming in giving coverages, simply because they are no one's employee. But now if government steps in and is able to offer social security in mass for all these people, as you said, yes, there is definitely going to be a significantly higher uptick in terms of interest levels towards having these gig jobs. And the point is, the future of the world of work seems to be more of gig. 15, 16 years back, this organized gig work was hardly zero, but now we have 1 crore plus people. And one of the reports of Niti Aayog also says that by the turn of this decade, we'll have nearly about 3 crore people on gig.
Okay.
So yeah, it's really important that this is recognized as a form of work, and they are also able to get, if not exactly the same kind of rights that a full-time or a contract employee would get, but at least they should have a modicum of social security through which they feel, that there is some umbrella over their head when they step out.
Absolutely. What about contractual workers? What changes for them? And are they also getting some more benefits under these new labor codes?
See, your contract workers and permanent workers are at par. Even before the labor codes were implemented, there is hardly anything that the contract staff do not enjoy that the permanent workforce would actually enjoy. And that explains why we as a company have also grown in the last 25 years, and contract staffing industry has grown as well. It is just that companies look at us as a partner for compliances, and they also look at as a partner for hiring and apart from compliances, and of course more than anything else they also look at us having the agility to help them ramp up when the market demands are such, right? So it is not because we provide a diluted form of employment through which they can save costs. That is not the idea at all. So the point is, now whatever changes have come about for permanent workforce is equally applicable to the contract workforce as well. So there is no discrepancy between the two,
Okay.
and there wasn't any discrepancy even then. It is just that the rules have changed for both together.
Okay, fair point. I think there's also this entire talk about how the hiring and the firing rules have been changed as well. In fact, there are some benefits on that front as well. But would you be able to explain in a little detailed way?
See, I think the fact that, number one, appointment letters have been made mandatory now. It is not like it wasn't mandatory earlier, but it was more of an unwritten rule, and because of which a lot of people were getting exploited as well. And that's also a reason why companies like us exist, because we come in and we make sure that all of these processes are adhered to. But now it's a written rule, you will have to do it, which means in the same appointment letter your terms and conditions of employment are also spelled out, which includes what your notice period is and on what grounds I can terminate your employment.
Okay.
So if that is not called out, it simply means that your employment is subject to the whims and fancies of the employer, and he can take a call to just chuck you out tomorrow, and there can be no consequences to it either, right? So that's the first and foremost step. And secondly, yes, the labor codes also call out that there is a much tighter timeline towards settling your full and final settlement now compared to how things were earlier.
Yes.
So all of these things help because there is a liquidity problem, right? Imagine if somebody is switching out of a job, if he or she gets to know that he has to wait 45 days to get the F&F, and in the next job as well they'll have to wait for a month to get their salary, then how do they make ends meet in the interim? You can't assume everybody will have some savings for managing situations like this, because for all you know, they might have left the job for reasons out of their control, or what if they were asked to leave?
Yeah.
So they shouldn't be penalized for that. So I think those are significant steps. And like I said, labor codes are not incremental at all. These are exponentially better than what we had before. Let's just not look at it as 29 laws getting rolled up into 4 codes. Absolutely not. It is about simplification, digitalization, and far more access and inclusivity for both employers and employees.
Fair point. What changes for people and for businesses when it comes to paying for overtime, etc.? Work hours, do they remain same?
Yeah. See, for example, they've said that for overtime you have to pay double. Double for overtime has existed even before. It's not exactly a new thing. See, it is just that many of these things could be subject to interpretation, because at a state level you may have different, not just laws, you have circulars, you have notifications, you have several other things as well. So it becomes a mishmash and a hodgepodge. But now if you standardize it and say that, hey, overtime is double, period, that just makes it simpler and clearer for everybody. That is one. The second thing is introducing more flexibility in terms of what a work day means. So earlier it used to be 9 hours in a day, including 1 hour of break time, maybe 2 breaks, 40 and 20 minutes each, etc. And then you work beyond that, you get overtime, which means you pay double for that. But now it is about a weekly limit rather than a daily limit. You have 48 hours in a week. It can be 8 hours over 6 days. It can even be 12 hours over 4 days as well. And you don't pay overtime for it. There are occupations where people need to work 12-hour shifts as well. And we understand that, which is okay. But as long as they work only for 4 days, then it's okay, right? You don't really pay any overtime. They kind of will end up working every other day or something like that. So that is still fine.
Yeah. Okay. Help me understand what comes to the women workers. What are they going to get as part of these new labor codes? Are they benefited in any fashion?
Yeah, so like I said, whatever is de facto happening has become de jure now. So, for example, most organizations, if not all, at least the ones that we work with for sure, they don't have two different pay scales for men and women, right? It's exactly
Yeah.
the same. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what your gender is, as long as you tick all the boxes, you are the right fit for the job, you'll be paid. Whatever we have earmarked for that particular profession. But it's not really been called out by law that men and women for a particular job have to get the same pay, but now that's been called out very clearly in black and white. So like I said, a lot of unwritten rules have become written rules now, and there is also a lot more flexibility that's been introduced into those rules as well, along with better digitalization and access. That's how I see it.
Absolutely. Now let's also talk about, you did also talk about the youth workers, like mandatory appointment letters, guaranteed minimum wage. Let's talk about that, the guaranteed minimum wage. How do you
Yeah.
see that as has been talked about in the new labor codes?
Yeah, incredibly important. See, because in India, 90% of the workforce earns less than 25,000 rupees per month. Now, to again start from the top, the government has been mulling over moving away from minimum wages to living wages, because in many cases the minimum wages in certain pockets of our country aren't really keeping in step with how the cost of living has grown over the last 10-15 years particularly, right? So there is no question about it, and this is a step in the right direction where you have a national floor minimum wage, and then the states are free to sort of have something which is over and above that for their respective zone. So even within each state you have different zones where you can have different minimum wages. So that is one thing which is changing. Secondly, bulk of the informal workforce, the other 47 crore that I spoke of earlier, aren't even getting minimum wages. Now, if something like this gets announced, then hopefully there will be noise from the informal workforce themselves that, hey, you know what, I want to become a formal worker because I want to enjoy all those rights and benefits. And earlier there were some entry barriers because the compliance burden was so much that it probably wasn't really feasible for many of our small businesses to even onboard them as formal workers. But now, if it becomes simpler and easier, then there is more reason for them to do it as well. It is not like these smaller companies don't want to do it. It is just that in many cases there may be lack of awareness or just the fear of over burdening of compliance and statutory norms and stuff like that. So if that goes away, then that will be the single biggest win for us, because India doesn't really have a jobs problem, right? We have a wages problem. Our unemployment level has stayed between 4% and maybe at max of 10% since independence. It's never gone above that. But the real problem we have is employed poverty. And if that gets alleviated, that, like I said, is going to be the single biggest win of the labor codes.
Let me also talk about, security and safety, measures that have been talked about as well. Where do you think which segment really benefits the most within the labor code?
I would say at this point in time, the gig workers will have the most significant upside compared to what they were having earlier, which is basically nothing, right? Because if you look at permanent and contract staff, they've always had some, social security cover anyway. It is just that it gets more formal for them, and the degree of contribution might go up and things like that. But I think the gig workers have it big in terms of social security benefits for them through labor codes. Yeah.
Okay. Let's now, come towards the end of our conversation, but at the same time, help our viewers to understand as to how can they make an informed decision when they're out there now to either take up new jobs or in their current employment as well, when they have to reassess their own salary structures and how things will be changed as per the new labor codes. What is it that you would advise them to really look forward to?
They need to really educate themselves on what their statutory dues are, because the government has opened up a plethora of benefits for workers of different categories, including gig and platform workers. So exploitation still exists, and they should simply educate themselves and arm themselves against potential exploitation by their future employer. So India has 6 crore enterprises. We have no business having 6 crore enterprises, right? We are 150 crore people. For an economy of our size, we don't really need so many enterprises. It is just that there are way too many MSMEs that we have, and it's in the best interest of our country if the corporate ecosystem in India gets more consolidated. So, which means there could be many cases where there is an intent issue. There could also be many cases where there is a lack of awareness on part of the employer. So in that case, they need to just make themselves aware, the employees I'm talking about, so that they are able to ask the right questions and make sure that they don't miss out on any of the benefits that the government is more than willing to ensure is made available to them.
Absolutely. So, for an average employee out there, looking at their salary structures, what are the steps that they should be looking forward to in terms of changes in the PF structure? So far, it was 12% of the basic salary. What should they now look forward to? Is there any scope of negotiating there? Where else should they be really looking forward to ensuring that they have the best salary structure?
Yeah, like I said, if 90% of the employees in India are below 25,000 rupees per month,
Yes.
then it's important, firstly, they check whether they are even paid as per minimum wages of that particular state post the labor codes getting implemented. First things first, forget about even the salary breakup. Are you even getting, the absolute amount which is at par with minimum wages or more? Check that first. And number two, is the contribution amount in line with what it should be as per the new norms? It's very simple. PF should be calculated at least half of the CTC. That's it. It's as straightforward as that. That is one. So that's number two. Number three, again, make sure that there is a certain gratuity call out also, which means that after 1 year or so that you do get your gratuity. If you do complete 1 full year of continuous employment under one particular employer, then you are paid your gratuity as well, and gratuity should be paid as per your latest salary. So that's the third aspect broadly. Other than this, yes, if you are a gig worker, or if even if you are a full-time or a contractual employee, then you will have to make sure that the benefits administration part also happens properly. You should proactively ask for, if you are enrolled in ESI, because the threshold is 21,000 rupees, which means again majority of our employees are eligible for ESI. Do you even have an ESI card? Direction is happening. What do you have an ESI card? And these days we issue digital ESI cards on our app to all of our 3.5 lakh associates. So they have ready access to it, and God forbid if they get into an accident or something happens to themselves or their family members, they just need to show the digital ESI card and get admitted and get cashless treatment. So do you have that? Do you have a proper appointment letter where your terms of employment are called out very clearly? Is any clause in the appointment letter in contravention to the labor code? So I would say broadly these are the 5 or 6 aspects that I would sincerely advise that employees are able to check for themselves.
Fantastic, Mr. Narayanan. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, and thank you so much for giving a lot of clarity to all our viewers out there as to how to understand the new labor codes. And just like how you really pointed out, there are a lot of benefits that the government is rolling out through these codes, but you must ensure from the sector that you are in, from the place that you're in, educate yourself so that you do not miss out on any of these benefits, and you can definitely go back to your next employer to speak about it and have that clarity in mind when you get your next salaries in place as well. Thank you so much, Mr. Narayanan, for your special thought there.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, viewers, we'll wrap it up on that note, on the new labor codes. I hope this has given you enough and more clarity. Do stay tuned with us onto Business Today Television as market coverage continues on the other side, and I will see you at 3 p.m. for the closing edition now.